Hey y'all, I just beat Mouse PI for Hire and here's what I think about it. In this video, I'll be talking about atmosphere, story, and gameplay. Quick note about spoilers, I won't be mentioning any story spoilers here, however I will mention a few specific events and things without context, such as the structure of the game. Despite this, I'm confident that you can watch the video before playing the game. It's impossible to talk about Mouse PI without mentioning Cuphead. Cuphead was the first game that I can remember that took use of rubber hose animation. Mouse PI, titled only Mouse at the time, was the second game that I can recall really taking advantage of this technique. As time went on, however, the rubber hose animation style increasingly grew in popularity and, in my opinion at least, seemed to be more of trend chasing than anything. People like Cuphead because of its cool visuals, right? So let's include that in our game. I grew increasingly worried about Mouse PI and if it would be able to recapture one of Cuphead's best elements. Now that I've actually played Mouse PI, I can confidently say that it and Cuphead are two different games. Not just because Cuphead is run and gun and Mouse PI is an FPS, but because the visuals are not as core to the experience in Mouse PI as they are in Cuphead. Cuphead is entirely built around its hand-drawn animation, with the game's tone, story, and gameplay all stemming from it. Here in Mouse PI, the great visuals are more of just one element of a whole game rather than its defining factor. More so, I found Mouse PI to be inspired by one game more than any other, Doom 1993. To me, Mouse PI is a modernized version of Doom 1993 with elements from other games like BioShock and Cuphead, for better and for worse. Mouse PI looks visually fantastic. The rubber hose animation looks visually pleasing and smooth while also retaining that grainy look found when viewing animations like them today. Compared to Cuphead, it's no contest though really, as that game was hand-drawn and I unfortunately have my doubts as to if this was, at least fully. Like I said earlier, this game is much more than just its animation, and so they must have had less budget to throw at it here than Cuphead. They use it as best as they can, to great effect I'd say. Each gun, NPC, enemy, and really every animation in the game is in the rubber hose style, perfectly recreating the look and most importantly, tone of it. I did find it to be occasionally distracting that NPCs' mouths did not match up to their words while talking though. It's not a huge issue when just talking to NPCs, but during the occasional fully animated cutscenes, it can be a bit jarring. Although it's a small price to pay in order to have it at all, I suppose. Most of Mouse PI is not rubber hose, however. Mouse PI is mostly black and white 3D models, besides the NPCs, guns, and enemies of course. While this may not be as impressive as Cuphead, it works towards a different goal in my opinion, which this game succeeds at. It creates a dark tone perfect for a noir detective drama, which is the true approach that this game is going for. By making the entire game black and white 3D models instead of entirely hand-drawn animation, it allows the game to successfully pull off a serious hard-boiled detective narrative along with a more silly animation approach. Admittedly, I don't have much familiarity with this specific genre of film. Most of the things I know about noir detectives come from pop culture or specific works based on the genre, like Spider Noir. So, while playing the game, I was seeing influences from different works, and one that stood out to me was BioShock. Mouse PI does a fantastic job at creating atmosphere extremely similarly to BioShock, with great sound and environmental design. There are multiple points in the game that stick out to me, with one notable example taking place at the start of the game. You walk through a train station filled with mice waiting for the next train, and it just feels so realistic, like I was literally walking through an early 1930s subway station. The ambient chatter, the worn look of the station with graffiti on the walls, and especially the lighting, which mixes perfectly with the black and white color palette to create deep shadows, all come together to create a memorable experience. This happens multiple times in the game, and it does wonders to immerse you in this world. So, if the game is trying to immerse you in a black and white noir recreation of the early 1930s, then why are there talking mice, rubber hose animation, and cheese puns all over the place? Well, I think it's because this game is trying to strike a balance in tone, which it mostly succeeds in. Both rubber hose animation and noir detectives are popular ideas that reflect the time period this game takes place in, so why not combine them and get the best of both worlds? By combining these two tones, it creates a world that's able to be funny and have tons of jokes, while also achieving that noir aesthetic by playing everything straight most of the time. The game takes itself almost entirely seriously, which makes the jokes that are intentionally meant to take you out of the immersion even funnier. I actually do think the game can be funny at times. The constant cheese puns are usually not very funny, but for me at least, kind of feel like they fit within this game's version of what a noir detective would say. For example, when Jack Pepper says something like, "He had too much blue cheese," it makes sense because mice in this world would eat cheese instead of doing hard drugs because, well, mice eat cheese. Most of the non-cheese puns work well too, as they add brief bits of levity and match the rubber hose animation nicely. There's tons of different game references, such as Resident Evil and Dark Souls, and even just straight up jokes as well. My favorite joke in the game is when Pepper sees a booth for a new technology called an invisible wall, and it's just a table with some money on it. When you walk up to it, an invisible wall stops you, and Pepper says something to the effect of, "That could be useful." It's a funny joke, and it didn't take me out of the world at all. Although, if it did take you out of the world, I couldn't say I blame you. I think the balance between noir detective and goofy animation is mostly good, although it can sometimes fracture a bit for me. One example of this happening was when I found a hole leading to a secret room with a window presence I could talk to. He started talking about secret meetings and stuff to that effect, and I was honestly really intrigued. Unfortunately, I found out later that day on Twitter that was just a Bloodborne reference. I think why that specific moment took me out of the game so much was, one, I didn't know it was a reference, but two, the world building in this game just kinda sucks. It's a real shame because compared to the fantastic atmosphere, the world building is noticeably bad in comparison. Mouse BI takes place in the early 1930s and certainly seems to reflect many of the major historical events of the time. World War I, Hitler and the Nazis' rise to power, police brutality and racism, the mob, you name it. The issue is that Mouse PI doesn't take place in our world. Because everyone is a mouse, I think it's safe to assume that maybe not everything is one-to-one in this world as it is to ours. Despite this, nowhere in the game does it explain as to what each of these events were like in this world. The characters in game constantly mention terms like the Big Mouse Party, the Old World, and the War, because obviously these characters know what these terms are, but the game forgets that the player themselves does not. The game does have collectible newspapers, yet they're so brief that they really don't do a great job at explaining anything. I honestly wouldn't have that big of an issue with this, but I think for this game in particular, it has a huge negative impact. First of all, the Big Mouse Party specifically is very important to the game's story, yet since they have no development, they have no impact. They just occasionally show up in the plot with literally no fanfare at all, and exit to appear again later. Second, it impacts the tone, like I said earlier. The reason why the Bloodborne Easter egg caused such an issue with me was because I spent the entire game expecting some grand mystery that never came. I expected the old world and Big Mouse Party to be part of some sort of big reveal, because why else would they not explain what these things were? Why else would there be graffiti all over the place saying Spike D is mice? Occasionally, the lack of world building can impact the noir side of the game and cause the silly animation side to take over. With the weak world building, this game's story has to do some heavy lifting, and unfortunately, I don't think it was able to achieve that. The game is broken down into three different cases: a missing man, a missing woman, and some missing shrews. Each mission is based off the clues you currently have, and you go and try to find some more clues to unlock the next mission. Simple detective game stuff. Unfortunately, for the second half of the game especially, you're following multiple leads at a time. By following multiple leads at a time, the game never lets you focus on just one. You're constantly switching back and forth, and it just feels like a mess. The thing is, too, the game keeps giving you more and more clues for each of the different cases, to the point where sometimes you'll get clues for other cases when following a different one. I even at one point had 2 different missions unlock at once, creating even more paths for me to follow. It all just feels convoluted, which really hurt my engagement with the plot. A good mystery, at least in my opinion, should be constant hints and clues, with the story raising many questions and not answering them until the end, where everything is revealed and connected together. This is exactly what I thought Mouse PI was going to do at first, as it starts out in one linear sequence and slowly expands into more. I just think it expanded too much, to the point where I wasn't using hints to try and figure out what the big mystery was, but instead just lost as to what was going on at all. What's left was just me going from mission to mission, grabbing clues just because the game says to, and almost not being engaged in the mystery at all. Now, this might not be so bad if the game was able to piece everything together and satisfyingly wrap everything up. To the game's credit, it is able to connect all 3 cases together, although I didn't have that moment of where everything seemingly clicked together. Instead, I kinda just thought to myself, yeah, that makes sense, I guess, because while the 3 plots do link together, it's not in an essential way, I'd argue. Once the 3 plots converge, the main villain is revealed, and the game starts to wrap up. It's at this point that everything goes off the wall and the plot suffers because of it. The entire realistic noir tone is completely thrown out the window, and it turns into a cartoony, almost save the world kind of thing. It's not terrible, but it's really not a great way to end the game and a story like this. And honestly, because of that, it lost me by the end. The characters don't do a great job at keeping me engaged either, although they are much better than the overall story itself. Most of the characters are decently likable, and while a lot of them are kinda archetypes for this kind of story and era, newswoman, mechanic, hot girl, barkeep, I still found myself liking them. The writing for most of the side characters is mostly pretty good, and the voice acting for them is about the same, despite a few wonky lines here and there. Jack Pepper himself is a great lead though, in my opinion. He's an archetype for sure, the noir detective, although it works here with the silly rubber hose side of the game. He loves to crack one-liners, but can get really serious when he needs to, and it works both ways, I'd say. This is all thanks to Troy Baker, who really gives this role his all. This character would just flat out not work as well without him, and I totally give him props for that. I do think one issue with the side characters, though, is that you don't get enough time to build connections with them, despite how important they may be to the plot. The game forces you to go talk to specific characters every now and then, and seemingly every time you return to the hub area, there's a new optional conversation to be had. Despite this, I don't think this is enough, at least for me, to actually care about these characters. I like them well enough, but the game doesn't do a good enough job for me to build an emotional attachment to them, which is clearly the goal here. With the weak story, the gameplay is gonna have to pick up the slack. Thankfully, it really does, or at least I thought it did. Going into Mouse I hadn't heard much from the reviews, although I did hear one snippet about how the game was too easy. For the first few hours, I found this to be the case despite playing on normal difficulty. However, as the game went on, it did start to become a proper challenge. It wasn't hard, and I didn't die in combat at all in my playthrough, but I certainly had to start trying a lot more. Despite this, I still felt like the combat was missing something. After replaying the original Doom 1993 for a bit, however, it finally occurred to me what that was. This game's combat appears to be up to modern boomer shooter standards, although I'd argue it's just as simple as Doom 93. I think Mouse PI's combat suffers from two main issues that are lifted directly from Doom 93. First off, this game does not feature any real tank enemies. Mouse PI does feature many different types of enemies, and yes, some of them take more damage than others, but even on normal difficulty, I didn't really notice too big of a difference. This kind of breaks the combat loop a bit, because instead of strategically deciding what enemies to kill first, instead you kind of just kill whatever gets in your way. The one exception to this, besides bosses, are the brute enemies, which are large mice that act similarly to the Pinky Demons from Doom 2016. They charge at you, and if they hit you, you'll get stunned for a brief duration. These enemies actually do take a noticeably longer time to kill, however, I still don't think it's long enough to warrant switching to a more powerful weapon. Even as the game went on and each enemy type got a more powerful variant, the time to kill was still so low that I never felt any reason at all to switch weapons unless I was fighting a boss or I ran out of ammo. This leads me into the second main issue with the combat system, which is the ammo economy. Each weapon in the game can be upgraded up to 3 times with blueprints. Each upgrade increases stats such as damage and, most importantly, ammo capacity. The first gun I upgraded to max was the machine gun, because in games like this, specifically the first 2 Doom games, I tend to use guns like that the most. The machine gun can hold 300 bullets when fully upgraded, and combining this with the increased damage, there is literally never any reason to use anything but it the entire game. While the machine gun does indeed hold a lot of ammo, the reason it's so essential is that the game gives you a ton of ammo for it. At any given point, I had at least 200 bullets in my machine gun, which meant the game almost never incentivized me to use anything else. Why would I take the hassle of switching weapons just to kill an enemy in the same amount of time? Unfortunately, I didn't, and unless it was a boss fight or one of the rare occasions I actually did run out of ammo, I never really got to use a different weapon for more than a combat encounter or 2. The reason why I compare this game to Doom 93 is because it too featured these issues. I would constantly just use the machine gun until I ran out of ammo, which to be fair is more common in Doom than it is here in Mouse PI, and I never had any reason to switch weapons besides during a boss or mini-boss, which again, to be fair, is slightly more common in Doom. Doom 93 gets away with this by having slower overall movement. While you can run pretty fast, you can only circle strafe so long until you start getting hit. The game was constantly trying to overwhelm you with the sheer number of enemies, so you would use more powerful weapons like the rocket and BFG. Here in Mouse PI, however, your movement abilities are so vast that you never really run into this issue. Sure, the game does get more challenging as it goes on, but I very rarely felt overwhelmed. Because of this, I felt no obligation to use any other guns, and thus found the combat to be slightly repetitive. I wish Mouse PI would have learned from modern FPS classics like Doom Eternal, where every gun has its own use and each enemy has their own weaknesses. Or, at the very least, look at what Doom 2 did all the way back in 1994. It looked at the original game and recognized its issues with enemy design and balancing. That's why the addition of new tank enemy types in the Super Shotgun feels so groundbreaking, because with just those simple additions, it completely redesigns the combat loop around killing certain enemies first, with certain weapons. Mouse PI has no such thing, and is essentially just mindlessly running around with the same gun the whole time, quickly killing the same enemies over and over. Mouse PI features a ton of bosses. Each boss has some sort of different mechanic, and while they do all just boil down to shooting someone a lot, they are great pace breakers. Since they actually incentivize the player to use different guns due to the damage requirements, you're going to be cycling through multiple guns. On top of this, because each boss takes place in one room, you're going to run out of ammo eventually, once again forcing you to change your playstyle. This, along with the sheer variety of ideas during bosses, makes each boss a highlight, even if they could have been slightly more frequent for my taste. So if the combat system here is so simplistic, then is the game fun at all? Well, yes actually, for a few reasons. While the thought process behind the combat is fairly simplistic, actually doing it can be fun at times. Movement is very fast in this game, and towards the end, you unlock tons of movement abilities, like a glide, double jump, and grapple. All of these things, along with the low time to kill, come together to create a combat system that can really be fun at times. It doesn't work all of the time, but when it does, it's great. The defining factor on if the combat is going to be fun or not is the level design. Unlike the world building, story, and combat loop, the level design actually does pick up the slack for some of the game's weaker elements. Quite literally, every single level has something new, be it some kind of new gimmick, playstyle, location, or even enemy types. The sheer variety in the levels is actually what I think makes this game so fun. I do think the varied level design does impact the story a bit, as it constantly has to make up excuses to go to random locations, but each level itself is a great time, and I always had fun going into a new level. Each level also contains different secrets. Much like the Doom series, secrets are a huge part of Mouse PI. They range from hidden areas behind props in the environment to puzzles where you gotta find a door code. They all are really fun to solve actually, and it gives the player a really nice reason to actually slow down and take in the fantastic atmosphere the game creates, rather than just rushing past it all. Secrets can contain ammo, money, weapon blueprints, and saves to unlock. I do have a small issue with the saves, however. Safes are unlocked via a lockpicking minigame, which is never very hard but does take additional effort to do so. My issue is that most of the time, safes contain money instead of blueprints, which is an issue because money is almost completely useless in this game. The money is used for 4 things: buying ammo, comics, newspapers, and baseball cards. The thing is that you can buy all the ammo, comics, and newspapers the game will let you and still have thousands of dollars left over. This is exactly what I did, and yet I had $3,000 by the end of the game. The baseball cards are only used for an optional minigame, which I played once and seemed fine. While stuff like this is a cool side activity, I really don't like how it plays such a huge role in the secret economy. There's a locked box found in the bar in the hub area, which will open up with 20 Spike D chips. You earn these chips via winning the baseball minigame. Inside the box is a secret weapon. This is a really cool idea in my opinion, but since it's an optional minigame, I wish it would be seen as more of a reward for dedicated players rather than something I might as well spend my money on since there's nothing else to buy anyways. I think this problem could be solved by letting the player buy blueprints for a high price, maybe $1,000. By giving the player the option to buy blueprints, it gives them something to work towards if they don't want to engage with the baseball system, while also not giving out too many free upgrade points. Mouse PI is a game that I think has a lot of potential, but is both following modern game design principles while also getting stuck in the same traps as an over 30-year-old game. The atmosphere and tone are like a mix of Cuphead and BioShock, almost perfectly blending the humor of rubber hose animation with the grit of a noir detective story. The story starts off strong, but poor world building and a plot going in too many different directions knocks it off course, even if there were a few cool characters and voice performances. Finally, fast-paced gameplay is hampered by a simple combat loop, but is saved by great level design and secret hunting. Mouse PI seems like it could have a similar trajectory as something like Doom 1 to 2. Learn from all of the mistakes it made and improve upon them to make an even better game. A better combat loop and story are all this game really needs to be an all-timer, as realistically everything else is a minor problem. A sequel is exactly what this game needs, and I really hope that it eventually gets one. Even despite those things, Mouse PI is still a fun game that I had a good time playing, even if I don't know if I'll ever play it again. If you like fast-paced FES games, or just think the game looks interesting in general, I think you should at least give it a try. I recommend Mouse PI for Hire, 7 out of 10. Well y'all, that's my review of Mouse PI. If you like this video, please make sure to like, comment, or even subscribe. I'd also really appreciate it if you could check me out on TikTok at goodusername011. That's all I have for this review, but I do want to take the last few moments to talk about me and my channel. Alright y'all, so at the end of my last video, I said that I hope I could get this video out before Saros came out. And I was saying, oh, well, that's 2 weeks away. Of course I can do that. So obviously that didn't happen, right? So what happened, right? So I was incredibly busy. I had exam season, right? And like literally I was studying until like 3 a.m. like every night. It was terrible. I didn't even beat this game until the day Saros came out and like actually came out. I bought the deluxe edition with the like 2-day early access and I didn't even get to do it. I literally installed Saros today, so that's annoying. But yeah, I'm really sorry about that. I didn't mean for that to happen, but it's just like, I don't know. I guess I'm bad at estimating how busy I'll be. Yeah. What else? So Mouse PI came out like almost 3 weeks ago at this point. Why even still make this video, right? Well, 2 reasons. I think the first reason is that I said I was gonna like make it, right? And I am a person of habit, so you know. But 2, it's like I actually had a fun time writing this script and like thinking about what I was gonna say, what I can critique, right? I haven't seen any other reviews really. Like I said, I've heard some snippets of it. I try not to watch reviews of games that I'm gonna like write a review on. But like what was I gonna say? Oh yeah. I just think I'm saying things that, like, most people aren't saying, like, who's talking about the, like, balance of the tone and, like, comparing this to Doom 1993? I don't know, maybe a lot of people are. Um, but yeah, you know, I just thought it was fun to make this video. Like I said, I do YouTube and TikTok for, like, a personal hobby. I like doing this stuff, so why not keep doing it? So another thing. So this is a different background, obviously. I'm home for the summer. Um, I wanted to at least get this video recorded before I went home for the summer because I'm not going back to that apartment. So I'm moving out of my apartment. Technically, I could go back until like July 1st, but I'm not going to do that. Um, but next year I'm going to get a different unit in the same building, but it's still sad that I won't be able to record another video in there ever again. So yeah, another thing is like this summer, we're also moving to a new house. So it's right down the road, but it's like I'm moving out of my childhood home. Like that's sad for me, you know, but that's another thing that will change and also like take up my time. Like moving to a new house is like going to take a lot of work, so that might slow me down. And also I gotta say, like right now, like the Wi-Fi here at my house is much worse than at my apartment, and that slows upload speed of all these clips. Like this clip of me talking is probably going to take an hour to upload, genuinely. So oh well. But like that slows down video production time too. The last thing I want to say is I got a Steam controller today. Yay! So today the Steam controllers came out. I literally got one like 5 minutes after it came out. I spammed the freaking purchase button and it went through. Thank God. I don't really need one, but you know, it's cool to have. Maybe I'll make a video on it, a TikTok. I don't know, probably not. So yeah, that's pretty much everything. Of course, the obligatory, my internship, it's drawing nearer. It's less than a month away. So if this is my last video before then, don't expect one for a few months after that because my time will be taken up, of course. But yeah, so what's next actually though? Well, Saros. So I've been saying to myself over the past few weeks, summer doesn't actually start until I get to start Saros. Thankfully, I get to probably start it tomorrow. I have to work on the TikTok tomorrow. Haven't even started the script yet, but it's literally just this script, just shortened, so whatever. By the way, I thought my voiceover was really good this time, and my script was like fine, so yay. But anyways, like I have to put in some effort into content tomorrow, but I get to start Sorrow soon. That's going to be my next video. I'm pretty certain, especially because I'm home and I have no homework to do or anything, that I can get that done before Lego Batman comes out. Is that the first game of this month? I don't know. I would like to play Crimson Desert a little bit before then. I haven't played it in like, a month and a half or whatever. I don't know if I'll get the video out, but whatever. But yeah, expect my next video to be Saros. I don't know when, before May 17th, hopefully, right? So yeah, I'm gonna wrap this up, but once again, I'm so sorry for such a long wait, you guys, but hopefully it doesn't happen again. Thanks for sticking around with me and waiting for me and all that. So yeah, thanks for watching, y'all. I'll see y'all later. Bye!